Obviously, the tariff situation is a challenging thing because it's going to change a bunch. It could change 10 times this next week. I have no idea what's going to happen. Like,
if you could tell the people who you are, why we should even listen to you, like besides your Blackmagic design shirt.
Yep. So my name is Dan May. I'm the technically president of Blackmagic Design USA. I've been with the company for almost 19 years now. So it's been a wild ride. I've seen the whole thing from decklink cards to the acquisition of DaVinci to obviously launching cameras. So I've been around a long time, seen a lot of things, and continue to love just doing what we do, putting out great products.
I mean, you guys have had a big, wild year. Yeah. Like, even in terms of software and certain things that people would look at competitors and say, oh, I still use this competitor brand, but now Blackmagic has this, or DaVinci Resolve has this, like, so I'm going to use that. So we'll go over a couple of those things in this interview, but right now I really want to talk about the Pixis 12K, a couple things with the sensor. If you want to just give the audience maybe a 2-minute why this is so different. Yep. So you don't have to go into specs, just like, why is this camera? Yeah. Because it is.
Yeah, so the big thing is like, obviously we came out with Pixis 6K last year, which was a great camera, affordable, 6K resolution, box camera that everyone was clamoring for getting. At the same time, we also came out with the Ursa Cine 12K, which was like we're going to put everything into a camera. Normally, we're very price sensitive. How do you build a $1,000 pocket camera? How do you build a $300 switcher? Yeah. And we did the opposite with Ursa Cine 12K. We just said, let's just put everything in, price be damned, and see what happens. And it's an awesome, awesome camera. And the sensor is amazing. Being able to do the high frame rate, obviously the 12K resolution. And the question became that's cool. There's now a big gap between Pixis 6K and the Ursa Cine 12K. How do we fix that? And that's how Pixis 12K kind of came about. How do we get that 12K sensor and give it as much as we can from the Ursa Cine 12K into that Pixis form factor? And it's not everything. We can't do as high of a frame rate as we're doing in there. We can still get the 16 stops of dynamic range. We can still get that high speed readouts that we get on the Ursa Cine. Obviously, being able to, one of the downsides of the Pixis 6K is it only shoots 6K, whereas on the Pixis 12K, it shoots 12K, 9K, 8K, and 4K. So now you have all those options. Hey, do I want to shoot in super high resolution and deal with, obviously, more storage?
And you get the full sensor. Which isn't normal with RAW.
That's exactly it. And that's the big thing is, like, most people when they're going and saying, like, it's a 12K or a high resolution sensor, but I go to 4K, they're just cropping it and they're just getting that. But we're not. We're using the whole sensor to shoot in that. So you're still getting this amazing image with that high dynamic range. Like, it's really incredible the images the camera can put out.
And it's really interesting because, and this isn't to, like, I'm genuinely excited about this camera just in general. I saw it, I'm like, what? Literally, to me, I'm like, most people watching this video, getting into the Pixis, getting into that stuff, are probably their first cinema camera. They're like using mirrorless DSLRs, and they're like, oh, what's so important about downscaling your sensor and still getting your full frame? Yeah. With RAW, that's not a normal thing. Yeah. Like, you look at Red RAW, you look at ProRes RAW, a lot of these RAWs, you can't.
I mean, the thing we always at Blackmagic are trying to do is we're trying to give as many options as possible, right? So, and the thing that we also have going for us that is like unique thing for Blackmagic is we have that combination of the camera technology with DaVinci Resolve. So it becomes that kind of like, cool, I can go ahead and shoot in 12K because I want to have all the data, I want to have all the things. Even if I'm going to edit in 4K, I could do proxies through Resolve, I can do Blackmagic RAW, which goes right into Resolve. And now I have all that, so later in 5 years, if I want to deliver at a higher resolution, I have all that. But if I just want to do like an Ultra HD shoot, I can just do the Ultra HD shoot, but I get all of that. You get the whole frame doing that.
Faster readout speed.
Exactly.
So we will talk about the tariffs briefly, just letting you guys know towards the end of the video. Can you talk about the sensor? It could be 5 minutes. It could be 10. I don't care. I'll cut it.
It'll be short. I mean, the big thing with that sensor is that it has that flexibility. It's obviously shooting in that 12K. The fact that, like, I have a lot of people that come and they say, like, well, I'm not going to use a camera unless it has a global shutter on it. And you're like, that's not, first of all, not every shot's going to matter that's the case. But the fact that it has such a high speed readout means that you don't actually need the global shutter if you're not abusing the hell out of the camera.
Yeah.
What you really want is that high readout so that it's going to look good, because the moment you actually put the global shutter in, you're going to lose the dynamic range.
Yeah.
And I would rather have the 16 stops of dynamic range
be close
and be fast than to be a global shutter and lose dynamic range. So that's one of the big decisions when we kind of were building this sensor and doing all of this to kind of have that. So again, everyone that uses the Ursa Cine 12K is blown away by the images that comes out of that.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're getting that same image out of this camera is bananas. Like, it's going to blow people's minds. We just don't, like I said, have the as high a frame rate output because of the thermals needed for the Ursa Cine.
Yeah,
but other than that,
small
it's the
body.
same image.
So, and I'm going to really harp on this sensor because to me personally, it's the biggest selling point. There are a couple other questions that people had regarding autofocus, like when it might come, and other things like I have to look at the list.
That's okay. I mean, autofocus is a great topic to talk about because that's one of those things where, like, I remember people coming and saying, like, we would like autofocus, or maybe that's the one thing that's keeping me from buying a Blackmagic camera. And I always would say, look, autofocus is great when it works great.
Yeah.
Autofocus sucks when it does not work great because it's now going out and in and out and in and not doing.
It's useless almost.
It's actually detrimental to actually the work that you're doing. So for us internally, it was always like, we're not going to do autofocus until we can make sure we do it right. So what we've put up this weekend is the limited launch. It's only on our cinema camera 6K, and it's only using the L mount version of that. So we really want to QA it. We really want to make sure it's good. Obviously, it's a free friggin' update, so people are going to go ahead.
Autofocus.
So you're going to go out and they're going to play with it and use all of that. We're going to make sure all those L mounts are good. Then we can start rolling it into either other cameras or start working on some of those EF lenses. So it's going to be a process for us to go through. But again, we want it to be a good autofocus, not just autofocus, check the box.
So is there a roadmap to add the autofocus into the 12K?
So I think that the plan would be is obviously we need to get the Pixis 12K shipping. That's like the first plan.
Yes.
I think any of those larger sensor full frame that we'd like to get it to, obviously because it's using a lot of the same technology of the Pixis 6K. Pixis 6K uses a lot of the same technology of the cinema camera 6K. You can see kind of where that path might progress there. So it will take time to kind of go through all of that. I don't necessarily know that we're going back to like our older generation cameras to add to it. Doesn't really seem like that's worth the amount of development time to do. So I don't have like a real roadmap, but I can kind of see how we're going to work through some of that process over the next couple months.
Yeah. So would you say it's months or years?
I think we're talking months here, but I don't think
that's great.
Think years for us to get to that point. Like, it's already really well flushed out for the L mount of the cinema camera 6K. So, but there's lots more work to do. So we'll see like how that all pans out.
Because I'm like these are questions that I know. Like me as a consumer and just like using I would want to know. It's like, all right, if I'm investing, like this autofocus thing is the coolest thing.
Yeah,
like you said, and even the way that it works with like the red and like the
face recognition,
and a couple things. And you guys do touch tracking better than a couple other companies, which is
I'll take your word for it.
No, just take my word for it, dude. I like touched it. I'm like, that's actually sticky. That's pretty cool. So to know that it's coming in a couple months as a working professional.
I think the thing is that we'll see progressive updates come out. It won't be like, hey, we did this, and then a year goes by, and like, here's the whole thing. I think it'll be like, cool, we've done that. Check that box. Now we'll open up some more stuff. Hey, maybe it's EF mounts on the cinema camera 6K. Maybe then it's L mounts on the Pixis 6K. Like, you'll see this, I think, roll out through different things. So it shouldn't just be like radio silence 2 years later. Here's the thing.
Okay. That's good for just viewers to know, even myself to know. So there are some people. To me, it's kind of genius to make the Pixis and then make its A-cam like soon, because people are confused. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we had a new release. It was a year ago." Some people are frustrated because they purchased it 6 months ago. How close is the color science between the 6K and the 12K? Like, how easy is it to match those two cameras?
It's very easy to do so. It's all using the same color science technology that we currently are implementing in our cameras. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is all based out of a lot of Da Vinci technology, so it's not going to be a hard thing to match. Obviously, the one challenge is going to be is the 12K doesn't shoot 6K and the 6K doesn't shoot anything but 6K. So you're going to have that problem if you're trying to, but as far as the color science, it's really the same color science across those cameras.
That's very good to know. So I want to know about specifically the dynamic range about this camera. So some companies, and if you don't know this, like if you're shopping around for camera companies, you'll see these marketed 15, 16 stops of dynamic range in this tiny little mirrorless thing. And then you actually use it and it's like, wait. So Blackmagic, correct me if I'm wrong, has had a history of accurately, like when they say 13 stops, it usually means close.
Almost. So the biggest thing with measuring
usable stops.
Usable stops, like the problem is like if you're measuring in a perfect environment, you can kind of squeeze out what you want to squeeze out. So when we say usable, that means like in a real working environment, we expect you to be able to get this or very close to this. So if you go into something and it's like completely unlit, like that makes it a lot harder to kind of like measure all those things. If you go into a place that's like perfectly blown up, lit, all the things, then like that can create a different result. So the methodology that we do to measure that dynamic range has been what we have found to be the most accurate way, and that's why we base those numbers off of.
Because it's wild to me personally that the Pixis, like there's a 3-stop jump.
Yeah,
that's intense.
Yeah.
For me, it's super exciting because personally, when I hear numbers for camera companies, unless it's like RE or something, I'm usually like, whatever. Like, I don't even, but that's exciting for me. So you would say, I obviously need to see charts, that it's like 16 usable stops of dynamic. That's insane.
Yep. And again, it's the same sensor that we've had on the Ursa Cine 12K, so it's already been out there.
It's already been out.
People have already seen what that does. It's just basically in this smaller, amazing form factor.
Well, you know what's crazy? Most people, this is, at least in my audience, Dustin, like whoever's around me, my circle, most people haven't seen the 12K because that's not the camera they would buy.
That's right. Well,
it's too big for most people, for some people.
And it's also like a rental size camera, right? People are going to say, most people aren't going out and saying, I'm buying this one camera. They're renting 3 of them or they're renting 6 of them. So this is why these cameras in different form factors and different prices are important, because I can't just sell an Ursa Cine to a college filmmaker, but I can sell them a pocket camera, or I can sell them and someone that's got out and is starting to do their own thing, they can buy. So it's like, it's important for us to have this full lineup of cameras that suits all these different needs. In the same way that we want to have a $300 switcher and a $3,000 switcher, like it's important to have these different lineups, because once people start using a Blackmagic camera and start using Resolve, the goal is that they'll keep using Blackmagic cameras and Resolve. So whether they stay at the setup that they already have, or they want to buy a bigger or a better or a faster, great, have all those options available to them. And that's been a big part of our model.
So last question with the sensor. I'm just asking a ton because that's the thing that's different, and that's the thing that excites me personally. So that's probably what I'm going to talk about. So the noise pattern is very different. Can you talk about that, please? Because
I'm not the best. I'm not the best at explaining all of that, but obviously we've done some interesting technology to be able to go ahead and how we pull the pixel colors from across and I've seen all the things on that, and I still couldn't explain it if I wanted to. But obviously it's a much different way of us doing that, but that's part of what the magic is to creating these images. So it's kind of part of the secret sauce that we've kind of implemented into these things that is pretty amazing. And that's why when like we get actual like DPs sitting down with colorists, they're like blown away by what this camera's able to do, particularly at this price point. So I'm not going to be able to explain it either.
You're good.
But it is pretty fascinating to see what we've done.
So with that being said, and all of this like good stuff, like you came out with the Pixis 12K. This is like the big question because it's new. It's just what happened. So tariffs.
Real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
So can you explain a little bit? Can you explain maybe something that most people wouldn't know that you can share? Obviously, you can't share everything.
Sure. I mean, obviously, the tariff situation is a challenging thing because it creates a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns out there. Like, is this what it's going to be? Is it going to change a bunch? It could change 10 times this next week. I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, these are rules that are being thrown out. And we're like, the thing with Blackmagic that we're pretty fortunate about is that we actually own all of our own factories. We create all the products in our own factories ourselves. So the challenge we have right now is that we have a factory in Australia, a factory in Singapore, and a factory in Indonesia. And those all have 3 very different tariffs on them currently. So like as we've gone out like this weekend and basically pushed out new pricing based off of what these new tariffs will be, we're also looking at how do I slide products from one factory to another factory so that we can minimize. If I have a mini converter that's $100 go up $30, like 30%. That stinks, but it's not that bad. If I have a Pixis 12K go from $5,000 to $8,000, that's kind of a big deal. That's a big price jump. So for us, we're looking at, well, can I take a Pixis that might have been being built in Indonesia, our Indonesia factory, and put it into our Singapore factory? Well, now it's only going up $500. Still stinks, but a lot better than $3,000. But this is kind of the hard part right now, where we need to address the fact that these tariffs are here, because I can't just not collect the money for those tariffs, but how do I also work to try to minimize the impact on our customers so that they're not just having to pay a ton of money for something that maybe we could do, and we could be clever about how we do some of that. So that's kind of, we're in a better place than a lot of people. If you were like a contract manufacturer in the US where you're saying, well, now I have all these orders that I have to bring in at a much higher price for stuff that I've already sold, like it could just destroy your entire business. So like, we're actually in a much better position, but like, we had to push up prices onto our website this weekend that included all those tariffs, but hopefully over the next couple of weeks, some of those rules may change. Some of the things that we could slide between factories might help with some of that pricing.
So you guys are actively trying to figure out how.
I think everybody is trying to figure out how to deal with it. But we have that benefit of actually owning and controlling our own factories, and that's very unique. So like, hopefully we'll be able to minimize some of the impact on some of these products. Like I said, if a $100 converter goes up 30%, that stinks. But a $5,000 camera going up 30%. That's a lot more impact on people's ability to buy. So that's the stuff that we have to kind of figure out. Unfortunately, the worst possible time for us, we're at NAB. We're launching 50 new products.
2 days later.
You're right. Pretty cool. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate all that. So yeah, work in progress, but that's kind of like our basic game plan.
Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. I think that would be insightful for people to hear. You guys are killing it. You guys are actually, I'm like so serious. You guys are actually killing it.
Man,
Dan, you're the man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Great to see you guys again.
Thank you, guys. Make sure you do the whole YouTube thing.